G'day YouTube, Warbles on a lot here. Saturday afternoon, Shearwater Lodge. We get the weekend off, so I just thought I'd make a video on my Saturday activity. Part 1, line 1. My daughter came down for the weekend, not only to see me, fortuitously, she's got a traffic control certificate course which she's been wanting to do for about a year. And instead of being scheduled at Newcastle, where we thought it was going to be scheduled, it was scheduled at Coffs Harbour. So, okay. The upside of being treated for cancer in Coffs Harbour is I'm in a position to offer free accommodation to my daughter to spend the weekend down here and do her course. So she's off at the bowling club getting a piece of paper that says she'll be able to be her own team leader and she won't have to run around obeying the instructions of people who don't quite understand the subtleties and complexities of the traffic site perhaps as well as she thinks that she does. So yeah, she's on the onward and upward track, and I think that's bloody great. Warbles is very pleased and proud. And she brought 2 or 3 rescue packs from my son. On the one hand, a refrigerated bag, which has its contents transferificated. And I think what we're looking at is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. I think we have 4 potato bakes and 5 mashed potato, boiled vegetables and vegetarian sausages in individual meal packs. So, my kids are feeding me. They are bringing the food hundreds of miles. We have friendly magpies supervising the process. Isn't that good? Yes, good to see you, mate. And for those who are into the sweet synchronicity of life, the universe and everything, Ethel Hogman and Eric Hogman were close friends of my father. Probably 60 times in my life I have eaten at her table. I thought it was pretty cool that I come down here and find that her son Alan has funded a room in memory of his mother. And he's also funded another one in memory of his first boss. So I feel like I'm more or less on friendly country. Hey, what do you reckon, mate? Yeah? Cool. Yeah. Absolutely. Considering I used to come here, well, down the coast, Red Rock, and visit Coffs Harbour 4 times a year for a couple of weeks at a time, from when I was born till I was about 20 odd. Cool. Where are you off to? Okay. Oh. Anyway, that's me bragging and boasting about my children bringing me food. Not only, but also, in light of me having got myself lost on Wednesday and fallen off the electric bike, young fella came up with some actual printed paper street maps with different scales, but basically the only way to get the streets in that area is to go to a different scale. But we can figure out, if we have a little bit of a look at this, the things one has to do to try and get some light onto these things. Okay, I think that's going to kind of sort of do. As sketchy as it is, I'm pretty sure that this is the hospital enclosure. I think this little dot there is Shearwater Lodge where I am. I'm pretty sure that's a river that goes around behind us. I'm pretty sure that that crossroads there is actually the roundabout. I'm fairly certain that when I set off on Wednesday, I've come out of Shearwater, I've gone for a bit of a ride around the car park, buggerised around there for about 1 kilometre. Then I've come up here, I've come down along here, and along here is where I've been doing the shopping. And I was pretty much supposed, in my own little mind, to come back along Stadium Road and come back in the back gate. That was what I thought I was going to be doing with my afternoon's shopping trip. However, other things happened. And we know that because I covered 14 kilometres on the afternoon's outing, and these are 1 kilometre squares, right? So if I've been around about here, and I've been 2 kilometres total time. I did 1 kilometre around the hospital, and then I toddled on to about here, and that's where I've been doing the shopping and checking stuff out. And then instead of going down there, I come down here, and I toddled along there, and I remember riding past this, and then I've gone all the way down to here, and then I've come all the way back up here, and then I got to there where I pretty much recognised I'd been there before, because last week when my son was down here, he took me on a bit of a recon, and we went out to the airport, and I duplicated that ride on the bike, and I had come back, and I got my way back into the hospital. So yeah, my plan had been to come from here, go up there, do some shopping, come back down here, and then, well, actually back down to here, and then, however, we went the long and the scenic route. And then when I came back, this here is the crossing where I nearly got snotted at the encounter with the passenger bus that pulled up in the inside lane and told me to run out there and get run over. So that looked fairly familiar to me. And I took off down here, and I got down to here, and I missed that turn there because I didn't get across that road onto the right-hand side where the bike track, they just randomly change from one side of the road to the other. And you have to know that, and I didn't know that. So I went along here, and about there would be where I crashed. And then after getting picked up, I've come back across the road, gone along there, asked for directions here at the stadium and got sent no help at all. Come up here and asked a bloke outside the subway and got no help at all. Gone inside and asked the 3 teenage girls, and they told me how to come back down to here and then toddle on up and back. And that pretty much accounts with all the backing and forthing and toing and throwing and backtracking. That's more or less the story of that day's outing. And now, thanks to my son, I have a paper map, and I can reconcile what I'm seeing around me with what I half remember with what I expect to see. So, rescue pack number 2. Thank you, Matt Attacker Skyer Scooters, which is what I used to call him when he was a little kid. And then we have part 3. You recall I discovered when I went to show you what the light looks like in the reflection in the mirror that this one had ceased to function. Well, I pulled it off and I pulled it apart and I diagnosed it, and I told my son what I really needed was a soldering iron and a bit of solder so I could have a crack at that. So he sent me an augmentation to my toy box. I mean, I have a kite, and I have glues, and I have pens and pencils and all sorts of stuff there, and a calculator and screwdrivers and spare goggles. And now he sent me this. I should have known he'd go the full banana. Okay, so we have a magnifying glass with an alligator clip stand so I can see what I'm doing with the oldness of the age. We have a really lovely little fine point soldering iron, the likes of which I've never used before, so that'll be a learning experience. We have a Humpty Dumpty great big an adjustable variable up-down digital temperature controlled soldering station. Never used one of them before either, because he didn't think Daddy come prepared. He sent me a pair of needle nose pliers, but you see, yeah, hey, apples and trees. Great minds think alike. And also, I said, send me a little bit of solder to do. So yeah, okay, we get what appears to be a brand new 6.3% solder, 1 millimetre. And not only, but also we have a sponge suit to cool me blade tip down. So yeah, Daddy's going to have fun. Well, what can I say? My kids are really good to me. And here we have the problem. This is a 48 volt to 6 volt transformer chip which runs the LED. And the only force securing the cable against traction modes is the end of a zip tie just put around the insulation on the cable, and that zip tie is supposed to get trapped in that. And I'm fairly certain that that's been totally bloody in. It might even be the case that that zip tie is supposed to go through that hole there and secure the cable to the light mounting bracket, because there's a lot less chance of there being traction between a tight cable tie there and the cable tie head on the inside. So I think it should have had two cable ties, one fixing the power cord and one just locating the end of it. But anyway, now it's got to have its soldered connection remade, where that little connection has broken off. Yeah, the end of the white wire's got to be soldered to the positive connection. And if you think that I'm going to have any hope at doing this while showing it to you on camera, you've got another thing coming. I'm going to be playing with a lot of new equipment, doing a tiny weeny little fiddly job, and I'm going to need all of my alleged mental faculties for getting the job done without making a mess of it. So I'll show you how it works, if it works, after it works. Yahoo yippee! And that's tricky. But anyway, soldered back on. And I didn't even need the sponge set. And now what I plan on doing is gluing that bloody cable tie there. And I'm going to glue it, the cable tie head, to the outside of the insulation cable. I'm going to glue it in that orientation so that the cable tie is going to take all the traction without putting any force on the soldered connection. Rather than, I don't know whether you can actually see the crimp marks, it was just in a straight line. So all that had to happen for it to go wrong was that cable tie just had to slide across the insulation around the power cable and then yank directly on the soldered connection, and that's what failed. So, part one, to locate it, a blob of super glue to attach the head of the cable tie to the outside of the insulation, and sit back and let that dry. Didn't actually need that. When I plugged this in and turned it on the wall and nothing happened, I got to admit it took me about 3 minutes to find that. I almost rang the son up to ask him, how do I turn it on? So, not omniscient after all. And now for the belt and braces approach. Bondic. Okay, now I think that is going to jam itself much more permanently in that occluded hole than it was ever capable of without being glued on. And then the traction will attach to that joint there and it won't ever impinge on that, because it's going to be in that orientation. If that makes sense. Like thus. There we go. We now have a tug-proof anchor on the cable. And in theory that light should now work. And personally, I cannot believe that the person who designed a bayonet push-pull connector waterproof like that, on a light as fancy as that, intended for it to be cable secured as badly as it was. I just think that was some kind of an assembly line miscommunication, malfunction. Something went on, because that's the very first piece of shithouse level Chinesium I found in the entire bloody push bike. And either that's the only bit and it's a mistake, or there's more crap like that lurking with unsecured cables ready to fall off at the slightest twinge of traction. And I prefer to continue to believe that it's a really good bike, and this is just the one dud that was in there somehow, and it took it 200 kilometres or something to break. The moment of truth. Look at that. It works, Kimo-sabi. It works. Chrissy's not as silly as he looks. There we go. Did done. Job fixed. I suppose the only question now is, do I send the soldering iron and its accoutrements back to him with my daughter tomorrow, or do I keep them here for the next thing that breaks and needs daddy warbles to fix it on the spot in situ? Any time to figure that one out. I do like being able to fix things when they break. Warbles on a lot to YouTube. Ciao.